So we want to start with the people who are sponsoring this meeting and sponsor things for us, our valued business members. Viju, are you ready?
Right, yes. Erica, you want to go first?
I'm here.
All right, go for it, Erica.
Hi, guys. Welcome to another Zoom meeting. Just want to give you a little update on what's going on. We are currently working out of our office. We have closings going on in and out of the office, actually. We prefer for the clients to be in their safety of their home, or we can meet you at your office, but we are still closing. We're available 24/7. I have 28 years of title experience. We specialize in double closings, transactional funding, anything having to do with the trust, closing on trust, probate estates, any of your title needs, you can come to us. My office is available to chat with anybody 24/7, either by email, phone, or text. My phone number is 305-476-8733.
Thank you, Erica. And Erica is one of our preferred closing agents, and I think we sent you a file today.
Yes, we did.
Oh, good.
Hello, everyone. I'm Daniela Levine Cava, and I'm running to be your next Miami-Dade County Mayor. I hope everyone is staying healthy during these unprecedented times. As we start to reopen, we can't lose sight of how important it is for us to wash our hands, to remain physically distant, and take the necessary precautions, like wearing your face masks. So this crisis is leaving a mark, and I don't need to tell you just how difficult these few months have been for everyone, especially our small businesses and our county's real estate market. If you want to emerge from this public health and economic crisis on solid ground, we are going to have to work together with a proven leader with a new vision for Miami-Dade. As mayor, I'll be excited to take on some of our most pressing issues with innovative solutions, from the affordability crisis that's pricing too many of our residents, and to the imminent threats of climate change and our broken transit system and gridlock on our streets. But these new solutions won't all come out of County Hall. I need all of you to work with me as partners, collaborating to each step of the way to get the job done. By building more affordable and mixed-use housing, and for easing congestion through expanded efficient transit lines, we can connect communities across the county with new opportunities. And I want to work with all of my partners to expedite the construction of affordable and workforce housing units, and to explore sensible incentives where the public and private sectors can team up to deliver a win-win for our residents. As mayor, we will invest in our neighborhoods, and it will be through responsible public-private partnerships where we will see the best results. We're going to need your investment, both in our county and in these new ideas. I'll be bringing new perspectives to County Hall for the opportunity to make history as Miami-Dade's first female mayor. I hope I can count on your support. Please spread the word, contribute what you can to the movement, and on August 18th, we will make history together and build a better, more prosperous Miami-Dade County. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Santiago.
And I'm Reed Santiago with Independent Title, Florida's best title company.
We're here to help all real estate professionals get your closings done. Like 1, 2, 3, come and flip some. A to B, B to C. We'll get all your deals done like a class action. Come to Independent Title, we get that Santiago satisfaction.
This is the checklist for www.besttransactionalfunding.com. Number 1, email your A to B and B to C signed contracts, including your contact person at the closing agent, to davedinkle@gmail.com. Number 2, relax. We will do all the necessary work to get your deal closed. You only need to focus on bringing your seller and buyer to closing. Our funding fee is 1% of the actual amount we fund, up to $500,000, and a $50 wire fee. That's it. It's just that easy. Next time you need funding, try us at besttransactionalfunding.com. I'm Dave Dinkle, 954-274-1003. Again, our funding fee is only 1% of the actual amount we fund, plus a $50 wire fee. It's that easy.
We are A to Z Capital, your one-stop shop for all types of mortgage loans. Whether you're looking for investment loans, owner-occupied, hard money, or cash-out refinances, we can help. Here at A to Z Capital, we offer loans for all of your investment and residence needs. Unlike others, we offer competitive fees and unbeatable hard money rates. Our 35-plus years of experience in analyzing and structuring real estate investments makes us right for you. Call us today at 561-609-6699.
Hello, my name is Danny with DREIAFacts.com. DREIAFacts is a real estate information system where we offer you a diversity of potential deals in pre-foreclosures, for sale with equity, probates, tax delinquency, tired landlords, short sales, bank-owned properties, auctions, repairs for sale, and vacant properties. And last but not least, cash buyers and holders to create your very own buyer's list. DREIAFacts.com, the deal generator.
Good evening.
Hey, Barry.
Hey, everybody. Hope you're all well and healthy. And what we're focusing on is, as Jim used to call me, Harry, you've got defenses Cohen. And what's really happened and what's developed, and it's very clear, is that these banks have no right to be bringing the servicing company and the banks and the plaintiffs in these foreclosures, which are starting to ramp up very quickly right now. They do not have any damages. They've made all the money that they need to. They had mortgage insurance, so they were paid for any losses. And they're double dipping, triple dipping to take advantage of people who are in desperate situations and who need to protect their properties and save their properties. And the defenses are clear. And not only that, there's counterclaims against them because they took government money, they did not securitize it properly, and there are damages that can be sought against the plaintiffs for really bringing frivolous lawsuits. And they have no damages. And we are able to get our clients ownership of the property at the end of the day. And the judges are aware of this. And I've got cases that are going on where the judges are hearing our defenses and allowing us to proceed in counterclaims where we can get people their properties free and clear. So my law firm is Barry Cohen Law Firm. My phone number is 305-790-1381. My email address is barry@barrycohenlawfirm.com. And come to us early, don't wait. We can keep you in your property and we can get, hopefully, your properties for you free and clear.
Right. Thank you, Barry. And I gave everyone a message that has your email. Thank you for being here tonight, Barry. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Barry.
I want to remind people before we go on. You heard Dave talk about students, and I will tell you, the mentor program is probably Change Your Life Mentoring is what we call it. Probably one of the most successful mentoring programs in the industry. We're actually doing classes again. We have one scheduled for next Wednesday and Thursday. That's the 24th and 25th. We'll be also scheduling one for July. It's very easy to apply. Just go online to DREIA.com. Tell me more about mentoring, sort of lower right. You can actually find an application there with videos of many of our students, as well as an introduction from Dave on exactly what is the mentoring program. So that's sort of my little plug for the day. We'll talk more a little bit later. Vijay, are we ready?
Yes, thank you again for all the vendors that support us. Commissioner Daniela is also a good friend of mine, so I support her. Hold on 1 second. Let me get this
Today I'm
going.
going to talk about overcoming the fear of cold calling. We're all familiar with the term 800-pound gorilla, or the elephant in the room. And what these analogies describe is an overwhelming fear of something that typically people don't want to talk about, but at the same time must acknowledge. Before I go straight into the presentation, I wanted to say that I oftentimes have students call me and say that they have changed their lives by living by some of the life truths that I've tried to instill in them as part of the program. The first one of which is, I am fearless. This doesn't mean you're reckless. It means you face up to what you need to do when you need to do it, rather than procrastinating and putting it aside forever. It doesn't matter. What you're going to find out in most cases, a lot of what you worry and fret about does not matter. No more excuses. Very oftentimes the things we do, we make excuses not to get things done, which are more important to us. And we know that, but we still come up with some strange excuses of why you can't do something. Don't look back. Living in the past is not going to help you in the future, and that's hard to do. It's easy to say, but oftentimes it's hard to do because of personal resentments or whatever. Try to do it. Do not look back. And I was checking up on one that I like, and I was thinking that I believe Nike has it, and it's called Just Do It. And when I looked it up online to see if Nike in fact did have a trademark on it, I found something pretty interesting.
Do it! Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow. So just do it! Make your dreams come true! Just do it! Some people dream of success while you're going to wake up and work hard at it. Nothing is impossible. You should get to the point where anyone else would quit, and you're not going to stop there. No, what are you waiting for? Do it! Just do it! Yes, you can! Just do it! If you're tired of starting over, stop giving up.
For many investors, one paralyzing fear is cold calling buyers, sellers, and especially realtors. Look, you learned to talk from childhood because you wanted food, diaper changes, or affection. At least two of these things haven't changed as you've gotten older. The most successful and highly paid individuals are the best communicators, whether it be vocally or through written media. Well, here you are now, and you must talk to people to make your real estate career successful or see it fail miserably. Frankly, what do you believe is the worst possible thing that could happen if you just tried to make cold calls? The three most common fears associated with cold calling. So let's be specific about what fear it is that's stopping you from interviewing a seller or asking the property owner to sign your agreement, and especially talking to realtors. So we're going to look at these once more. What you need to do is say to yourself, I am fearless. It doesn't matter. No more excuses. Don't look back and just do it. Start here with I am fearless. I'll sound like a fool or I'll embarrass myself. Well, you're right. You will embarrass yourself, but only if you care about being embarrassed. You're not alone. These feelings are so emotionally powerful, they can drive people to desperate ends, even suicide. That's what bullying is all about. There will always be people who are jealous of you or discriminate against you. There is no stopping this social evil. Only you care about what other people think, and only you can change your thinking. Everyone in real estate started at the same place you're starting, filled with uncertainties, basically fearful, and not knowing for sure what to say to buyers and sellers. How do you overcome it? I'm going to say it again for you. I am fearless. It doesn't matter. That's where we are now. No more excuses. Don't look back. Just do it. Remember, it doesn't matter. The only answer is to be proud of who you are and what you do, and always know the more you work at overcoming this deeply rooted fear, the closer you are to succeed in your entire life, not just real estate investing. How about this one? I don't know what I'm talking about. Well, that's correct, but it can easily be changed. Number one, Plan and practice before you make your calls and before you decide to talk to someone. Secondly, simply educate yourself about your topic as much as is reasonable. One of the major issues new students have is they feel they have to know everything about how the real estate cycle, offers, contracts, everything works before they can make an offer. The reality is that's procrastination, and you just don't get started by doing that. Number 3, fail forward and discover what you didn't know by talking to sellers or agents. You always have the option to say, my partner is an expert in that, let me check with him. Another good one is, I'll lose the deal. Until you learn by failing forward and becoming confident in what you're saying and how to handle yourself, you don't have any deals to lose. Every time you make a presentation to a seller or buyer, you come closer to perfecting your craft, real estate investing. So saying that you'll lose the deal is in fact an excuse. No more excuses. It's an excuse. Fail forward and learn from what happens. Let's look at what are the 3 most common things to do to overcome this fear. Your success in life depends on your communication skills and how well you interact with other people, again, verbally or written. Number 1, new investors and agents often believe that their ability to close the deal is dependent on their knowledge and credibility, both of which they may or may not have. In fact, your ability to close the sale is dependent on listening to the seller and asking more questions than they ask. You build credibility by listening and having empathy for the seller's problem. Sounds simple, doesn't it? But when you're faced with having to just do it, things change dramatically. That's because you get nervous, anxious, and you begin to rush to close the sale. So here's a hint. Slow down before answering any question the seller has, and pace your speech pattern with the opposing party. Who's the opposing party? It's going to be the seller or the buyer. This builds a comfort level with either party, and they're more comfortable in the fact that you're listening to them. One of the things I have to admit that I've done myself too many times is I've heard the same objections thousands of times. And sometimes I will start listening empathetically, and a seller will start to tell me something, and I interrupt them. That's not what they were going to tell me. And boy, oh boy, can that really kill the atmosphere. So listen carefully, make sure they're done talking before you answer them. The second thing, and the most essential step in your success, is to record your phone calls and listen to them to learn what you really sound like. Then fix your script. I'm going to talk more about scripts shortly. Now, almost every state in the United States has a minimum of what's called a two-party consent state. That means that both parties to a conversation have to be fully informed if they're being recorded. Otherwise, it can be a felony. So we're not using these recorded conversations for anything other than a learning exercise. You're not going to use them as evidence in a court trial. You're not going to blackmail the guy on the phone. And theoretically, you should be the only one that ever hears them unless you have a mentor, looks over your shoulders, and says, do you understand what you're doing wrong? Sometimes you won't. You won't understand that long pauses, so on and so forth, repetitive natural bad habits pop up and they deflate the conversation, I'm going to say. So number 3, and this is possibly the most important thing that I can say today, practice, practice, and practice. Dave, how often do I practice? Every day. This isn't practicing on somebody that you've called up and you're trying to find out is a property available, or sitting in front of a seller and practicing there. You need to practice your scripts before you go. And I can feel the emotion in the audience out there thinking, I don't need script. I've done this before and I'm going to do it again. And I have to say to you that I was there. And what I did for a long time, because in incoming calls, I only had about 10 questions. I pretty much could remember them after doing them hundreds and hundreds of times. But what I learned was the person on the other end of the line would get me off track. They would start talking about something else. I'd try to get back on track, try to remember what the last question. What I finally did is write them down. They're in the mentoring materials. There's 2 scripts, an incoming phone call script and a short sale script. 2 very different scripts. So what I want to look at now, before I get into scripts and some other things, is the most powerful question ever. And I'm going to do this very quickly for you. Show it to you right now. There it is. So as you're taking information from a seller, whether they called you or you're sitting in front of them, in your scripted questions, I'm going to say about halfway through, I don't remember exactly, you're going to ask this question. By the way, why are you selling? And you can say that, Dave, I like it, why are you selling? That's about 20% as effective of, by the way, why are you selling? Like, I can't understand it. Why are you selling? Until you repeat that enough where you understand the inflection on, by the way, why are you selling, you're not going to get it. You're not going to understand that those inflections are very important. Now, why is it such an important question? This is likely the only time a seller is going to tell you the truth. You've heard me say this too many times. Buyers are liars, sellers are liars. They are, because they're trying to sell you on what they want to do. A lower price, take a higher price, whatever it happens to be, they're lying to you. Now, is that true 99.9% of the time? Yes. 0.1% of the time it's not. And typically it's because they're answering this question. They want empathy from you for their real problem. That's where you're going to find out what the real problem is. And your job is simply to provide a solution. And again, what's the solution? Well, let's talk about the problem. If the problem is a time constraint, in other words, pre-foreclosure, pre-tax deed sale, divorce, bankruptcy, rushing to get funds out of an estate, or something where there's a time constraint involved, or frankly, it's simply a headache for the seller, and they want the convenience of getting rid of it, that's a motivated seller. And that has been the demise of too many new real estate investors, because they think because the seller says, look, I'm motivated to sell, that means they're motivated to sell. It doesn't. Sellers are liars, buyers are liars. They're telling you that because they think that if they say that, you're going to offer them more money because you think you're getting a bargain. And frankly, it works on new investors too often. Now, this convenience factor of selling the property is hard for a lot of people to understand, especially real estate agents. Their belief is they have the most powerful tool in the world called the MLS. They can market any property and sell it in somewhat reasonably short time period. Somewhat is relative. Time period is indeterminate. But the iBuyers came along and said, you know, there's a group of people out there that just don't care about getting the highest price in the world. They want out, and their focus has been on convenience sales. Let me give you a simplified example. Property is $350,000, fair market value. How did I get the fair market value? I looked at 6 different online automated marketing valuation models that these guys spent millions of dollars on. They had 6 different prices, averaged the prices, and the value was $324,000 roughly. So the iBuyer went in and offered $300,000. Now for a seller who wants convenience, $300,000, that isn't bad, because I could only get $325,000 or maybe $30,000 if I waited months. Oh, and by the way, I have to pay a realtor's commission. That's terrible. I'm going to bring it up now because it's important. The reason investors get so many probates, probably 80 or 90 times as many as listing agents, is not only because we can close quickly for cash, is beneficiaries just don't want to pay you 6%. They don't understand your value and how much work you have to put in many cases, to sell a property. All your licensing requirements and fees and charges and everything you have to go through. But if we as investors make them an offer, net, guaranteed closing 3 days after court approval, they're out. They're gone. They're going to sell to us at 30% below market value or more to get their money. So the iBuyers came along and they said, we're going to offer $300,000 for this property. That was the beginning of the price. What they actually came around to paying was $258,000. How did that happen? They have an acquisition fee, a remodeling fee, and other numerous fees, including, oh, by the way, commissions. And they make the seller pay their closing costs. And they can cancel the contract up through the day of closing, so they run no risk whatsoever, including their earnest money deposit. They make these offers blindly. I mean, that's the worst thing a realtor wants to hear is, have you seen the property? No. Why do I have to see it? Well, because how can you make a blind offer? How do you know what it's worth without seeing it? iBuyers know, because they're not going to pay that price no matter what. So what I'm saying is this. Listen carefully and provide the seller with a solution to his problem, and you will be paid very handsomely. That's what we do as investors. That's what realtors should be doing. But they have to have more than one solution of listing the property. This is where pocket listings came into play, where they have built buyers lists of eager cash buyers called investors, sometimes rehabbers, and those guys are out there combing around realtors looking for pocket listings. Now, when you go to the seller, if he tells you he wants a certain price, full market value in essence, and he says he's testing the market, the best thing I can tell you to do is let somebody else take the listing if you're an agent, or just run from the place. just a waste of your time. It's not going to happen. We've seen days on market or DOMs on properties over 2,000 days. Why? They're testing the market. Hasn't gotten there yet. They're in no hurry. They don't care about leaving. I had a student call me from Alabama, and he said he had 2 properties that he got from a bandit sign. And he said, this is the address of one, that's the address of the other. He wants $210,000 for this property, and I think he wanted like $190,000 for the second one. So he said, what do you think? It's my worst question. What do I think? You're supposed to be learning what you think. So what I did is I went in and looked up the value. And I also looked up the history of the property. On the property that the seller wanted $210,000 for, he had tried to sell it for 2 or 3 years at $140,000 and couldn't sell it. So would he be happy with 210? Oh, would he ever be? Now, on the other one, he had tried to sell it for 85,000 and he reduced the price to 65,000 and still didn't sell it. Took it off the market, answered the bandit sign, thinking that investor's got to be dumber than whatever. And of course, the investor had somebody behind him. Otherwise, he might have put them under contract and tried to sell them. So if that's the case, let somebody else take care of it. Now, sometimes you may be able to look at creative financing, or maybe this is just a smart answer to some of these guys. So a guy comes along and he says, yes, I'm willing to sell it, and I'll only take $125,000 for it or nothing. You write up the contract for $120,000. He says, I'll take nothing less than $125,000. So don't even offer me less than that. So what do? You write up the contract for $125,000. In the addendum, you put in there that it's payable $625 a month for 20 months. That's $125,000. So if he shouts at you, I won't take anything less than $125,000, that's what I'll do. And if you write the contract, I'll sell it to you. Okay, great. You write the contract with a purchase price of $125,000. In the financing section, or in the addendums, you put very simply, buyer agrees to pay seller $1,000 a month for 125 months. That's no interest, seller financing. It allows you time to rehab the property, sell the property with seller financing in place, or if you can rent it for more money, you can hold it until you pay it off. Now, there's a general thought by most investors that if they do advertising and a seller calls them up, that's the best lead in the world. They're very comfortable talking. Very oftentimes, new students will say to me, I can't cold call. But if somebody calls me, I'm the master of communication. And it's true, because they believe it's true, and they make it out to be true. That's fine, but the most powerful way to control the conversation and get the info you need are predetermined questions. What are predetermined questions? They're called scripts. Some questions are uncomfortable. How much do you owe? Are there any code violations? What is the condition of the property? And the only question ultimately that matters is, oh, by the way, why are you selling? So before you start advertising, prepare yourself and what you're going to do when people call you. Now, that may sound very silly, but it's not. Too often times an investor puts out bandit signs. And the thought is, I'm going to get calls, and great. So what are you going to say to them? Well, I'm going to ask them the address of the property and what they want to do with it. What you need to do is produce a script that has the pertinent questions. Obviously, what is your name? What's the address of the property? The date? By the way, where did you hear about us? And then start into other questions about the property. Once again, what's the most important question to ask as you get down into the guts of your presentation? Oh, by the way, why are you selling? What happened in this situation where my student put out bandit signs is he started to get phone calls. And he emailed me and said, here's what the seller said on the phone. The seller was fairly sophisticated because he must have been trying to sell the house for a long time. But what she didn't realize is she had a script in her materials, and she could have gone through it and controlled the conversation, as it was with a hodgepodge of information going in all different directions, and it really didn't help her to try and determine how motivated he was. When I was in college in chemical engineering, we had complicated formulas that we had to use. For example, if you had 2 vats of wine, one white wine and one red wine, and you open the valve on each of them, and 250 foot down the line in a 1 foot pipe, when did you get a rosé? Now, that may sound like a silly question, but if you have 2,000 feet of pipe, it becomes more important. But what the professor did to confuse the issue is he gave you too much information. All of the information wasn't necessary, and only the guys that could understand that ever got through the tests. I did graduate, so I got through some of them. So as I mentioned to you before, there's 2 scripts. Incoming phone calls that keeps you you on a track of getting to the most essential questions you need. The second one is simply a short sale script. So you go out to the homeowner, you sit down with them, and the first question on the script is, do you already have a listing agreement? If the answer is yes, you're done. Don't bother to take any of the information because somebody else has a listing agreement. But Dave, I'm not a licensed agent. I'm not asking you to be an agent. I'm saying to you that if a listing agent has already got it under an agreement, they're going to be listing the property. They're going to be doing the short sale through their short sale person or closing agent, and all you can be is a buyer. And you say to me, well, Dave, that's what I want to be. That's what I'm here for. I want to be a buyer. Yes, but you're going to now have to dance to the tune of the guy that has the listing. You want to be able to either be a licensed agent and get the listing or control it by getting there first and putting your listing agent on the contract, having them fill out the listing agreement, and then work the price so you can sell it wholesale and make money on it when it's approved by the loss mitigation rep. Now, what's he going to approve? Well, here's what happens. If the seller owes $200,000 and the seller said to you, I don't care what you buy it for, I'm not getting any money at closing anyway. You say to him, okay, I'm going to write the contract for $40,000. He said, write it up. I'll sign it. That doesn't mean you have a property at $40,000. It only means that the asset manager decides to reduce the payoff to, that's what you're going to get it for. Again, this is not the time to talk about short sales and how to get price reductions and all those things. Those are all possible, but they're more complicated and they take more time. So those are the two possible data collection sheets. And I mention them because they are scripts. I want to say that in my belief, the most powerful source of leads and sales in the real estate industry comes from cold calling for motivated sellers using scripted conversations. So what about using scripts? There's an axiom in the industry and in advertising that you have 5 to 8 seconds to get the attention of a prospect before they hang up or emotionally block you out. Now, what can you really do in 5 to 8 seconds? Well, everything you can, and you have to be able to script it. That first opening statement must be powerful and attention-getting, or it's not going to work. Very oftentimes when I listen to conversations that students or other investors record, they want to tell the seller how important they are. The seller's thinking, what's in it for me? That's his or her only question. What's in it for me? From your side, what you're thinking is, I am Tarzan of the real estate investing industry. I have done 25 homes. I've done 200 homes. We buy 100 homes a month. All of that stuff doesn't matter to the seller. You're not impressing them. You're making them think that you are a bloated ego kind of guy. So how can you do that in seconds? Well, let me give you an example that always worked pretty well for me. It's not going to work for you now because I told you it worked for me, but if you try it and practice it, it will get you a door opener. So a tax deed presale. Ring, ring, Mr. Johnson. Now, you're going to try and say Mr. Johnson's name at least twice or 3 times. Mr. Johnson, yes? Who is this? Mr. Johnson, I saw the county is trying to steal your home through tax deed sale. My name's Dave Dinkle. I'm a tax deed strategist. I can help you. Don't say anything. First to speak loses. Now, what if he says, I'm not interested? Aha! That's where the important part of your script comes in, because a lot of them are going to say that. Oftentimes they would say to me, it's been taken care of. And my response would be, well, public records don't know it yet because they're still going forward. I can help. So I'm not going to get into the scripts that we already use and we already have. I logged into YouTube and I Googled scripts for real estate investors, I think is what I put in. And hundreds and hundreds of videos came up, it seemed like. Could have only been 1,000, I don't know. There was tons of them. Now, are those scripts good? They're as good as they are if you use them, and they're no good at all if you don't use them. Should you take a script from there that sounds good to you? Why not? If you're not in a coaching or mentoring program where somebody says, here's what works for us, then go ahead and try it. Fail forward. What if I lose the deal? You don't have any deals. Use a script and fail forward so you do it the same over and over again. Now, one of the common excuses I get is I don't want to use scripts because I don't sound genuine. They just don't work for me. You're absolutely right. You don't sound genuine because you haven't practiced them. I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes, I guess, how powerful scripts can be and how much you should practice them to make them truly efficient. A lot of famous people are remembered for fantastic speeches. I mean, they pulled at the heartstrings of the public. They turned people on. They did what they were supposed to do. The greatest speeches ever made by great orators were from scripts. Dave, how can they make that stuff up? They write the scripts beforehand. If you remember Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, he wrote it on the back of an envelope. It was a script. but boy, it was very, very powerful. So let's talk about something that we can relate to in terms of cold calling multiple times. I'm going to talk about realtors who do over 100 and one or two that do over 150 closed listings a year. That's very powerful. They're very dedicated, very focused, and their routine is cast in stone. They know exactly what to do. Once again, I'm going to say this to you because it's kind of important. Don't overlook the value of a script. We provide them in the coaching and mentoring program because they're so powerful, but only if you use them. And by the way, if you don't practice them, they won't work. So as I said before, let's talk about practicing your script. Going back to the 150 guys a year, one of these superstars told me he has 16 specific introductory scripts for the two niches that he works. He cold calls daily. He also has 12 scripted responses for objections. Now, sometime in the past, I was selling a house and I picked up the phone, and it was a realtor, and he was doing exactly that. He had a scripted pitch, and I said to him about 4 or 5 times, no, I don't need the help. I can sell it myself. And he said to me, well, when you come to your senses and you want a real professional to sell it, you're going to call me. Well, that's a bad script. I don't have to call him. I can call any realtor who wants to list it for me. So don't get angry because you get a no. You've also watched me show you that only 2% of sales are made the first time you make a call. Only 2%. Second time when you follow up, something like 8%. Third time, maybe 15 or 20. And 80 to 85% of all sales are made after the fifth no. So you've heard me say it. The money's in the follow-up, not in making the offer. In these cold calls, that's very often the case. The follow-up is what happens and where the money comes from. So this guy's been in the business over 5 years, and he still spends, now listen to this, every day he spends 1 hour practicing those 28 scripts. An hour a day practicing scripts that he said at least 20,000 times. Is that ridiculous or not? No, it's not. It's cultivating his skill level. When he said that to me, I said, well, give me an example. He said, well, give me any objection. So I said, oh, okay, here's an objection. His answer was magnificent. And it came off his lips like, whoa, just like, boom, there you are. Now, he didn't do it like, I knew what you were going to say, and here's my answer. He paused, listened to what I said, paused again, and bang, he gave me that really terrific response. So I want to show you what the numbers are. Do you have to make 1 call, 100 calls, 100,000 calls to get a deal? There's no way to tell. If you're learning and practicing your scripts, and your scripts will work for you, then there is a number that you start out with. But let's talk about his real numbers so you get an idea. If he was in the big league and a batter, would he be batting 200, 100? 100 is 10% of the time at bat. So he uses a Mojo dialer, and the Mojo dialer simply is an electronic device that dials phone numbers that you preset into it. When the phone rings, you're on a headset. It connects you up when the person answers. Person doesn't answer, I don't know what happens because I don't use a Mojo dialer, but you can get as many as 3 levels of a Mojo dialer where it's dialing 3 numbers at the same time. And you probably had this happen to you. The phone rings, you answer it, and they pause and click off. You say to yourself, am I, stalkers? No. It's a Mojo dialer that didn't get through to you. Another person answered, and they clicked your phone off and clicked that phone into him. You can only talk to one person at a time. So every day, he tries to make 300 to 400 dials. Now, that's pretty good, I guess, but what does it take to get a closed deal? So if he closes, let's make it easy on our brains here, 100 deals a year, it's roughly 2 deals a week. That's 100 contacts a day. Remember, he's dialing 300 to 400. We don't count those dials. We count the number of contacts, the time a person actually picks up the phone. That's about 100 a day. That's his goal. How many does it take to get 100 a day? 300 to 400 in most cases. So that's for 5 days. That's 500 contacts. That success ratio is 2 contracts a week divided by 500 contracts. That's 0.4%. That's less than half of 1%. Again, less than half of 1%. So if you decide you're going to cold call because it's a way to make a lot of money if you do it right, are you going to be discouraged when your success ratio is 0? You're not very far away from 0.5%, frankly. All you have to do is get your scripts down and practice, and you'll be up there. Now remember, this guy is making 1,500 to 2,000 dials a week. So if you think that's impossible and those numbers aren't accurate, They are. Now, the ironic part of this whole interview that I had with him was he wants to be an investor. And I said to him, what's stopping you? He says, well, you know what's bothering me is I get these deals, I put them out there, and the same investors come by and buy them. I look in the public record, and they're selling them the same day for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 more. Why can't I do that? I said to him, why can't you do that? What's wrong with you? I don't want to risk my license. I don't know how to do it. Well, if it's not important enough to you to find out how to do it correctly and legally, then just keep making 2,000 dials a week. I've heard agents brag about the fact that they make 25 to 40,000 dials a year. Now, their fingers never touch the dialer because the Mojo dialer does it for them, but that's a lot of dials. So if you're saying to yourself, I hear it already, an excuse, that's too much work, then tell me something. Where can you make $500,000 a year or more with less effort? And if you can, and you love doing it, go and do it. Now, I can give you an answer for that question. The other place you can do that is doing wholesale transactions with a $20,000 profit. That's pretty much our average. Do one of those every 2 weeks to a month. We have numerous students who do between 1 and 3 wholesale deals every week. So if you're saying to yourself, it's impossible, it's not. It's only impossible in your mind. Frankly, it's a lot easier to achieve wholesale transactions of that nature than it is to make 10,000 plus dials a year. And by the way, I'll give you a clue, and you can find this out if you want to, but the cold callers who use the Mojo dialer method that are listing agents using the Tom or Mike Ferry technique focus on one of 3 areas predominantly. Expired listings, they're easy to find. FSBOs, they're not hard to find. And probates. Interestingly enough, agents seldom do what I call advanced marketing or target marketing of using stacked filters. Now, if you don't remember what a stacked filter is, it's a number of filters to try and find what should be the most motivated seller around. One filter would be non-owner occupied. Property is in pre-foreclosure. Property is in pre-tax deed sale. Property has 20 to 30% equity. And the property is vacant. Those are all viable stacked filters that you can get from a data source. A data compiler is what they're called. So I'm going to close this segment out by saying practice, practice. And I don't know how many times it says practice there, but it's not enough. If you don't practice, you're going to be stumbling around and getting discouraged. Practice even though you practice every day before you go into it. And subtle inflections, especially if you speak foreign language, are very, very important to you getting deals. So again, what is the success ratio? So I'm going to mention this just quickly because people ask the question all the time, and I can give you some numbers that I think are reasonably accurate. What is the success ratio of cold callers using a script? Now, I talked about 0.5% for the professional cold callers using expired listings, so on and so forth, who are licensed agents. But let's talk about investors. Typically what an investor does is they don't like cold calling, so what they do is they put together some scripts. They hire virtual assistants. Now it depends on the virtual assistant. A virtual assistant doesn't mean they're in the Philippines or in Pakistan or wherever else you might think they'd be. A virtual assistant can be a licensed agent, doesn't have to be licensed, but typically a licensed agent in the county you're in. I'm not going to get into what do you pay. In the Philippines you can pay, 50 cents to $1.50 an hour, but you get 50 cents to $1.50 an hour professionalism. Skill levels. You want people that can speak American, not English, American. So these are all things you have to take into account. But typically when a new VA comes on board, the hope of the investor is one lead, not closed sale. One lead in 1,000. Because with that lead, it's now what's your conversion rate? Does it take 10 of those leads to convert into one sale? Well, frankly, it doesn't matter all that much to begin with, because if that virtual assistant is generating leads on a consistent basis, remember, you can make enough money on one closed sale to pay his or her salary for a year and a half probably. But 1 in 1,000 is not uncommon. If you're doing it yourself and you get professional, you stack your leads, you know what you're going after, you should be able to get down to 1 in 300. The most successful students who are happy with not having to do over 100 deals a year, but are happy with doing high 6 figures and low 7 figures, typically do 1 in 50 or 1 in 25 presentations. What's a presentation? That's a scripted contact on the phone to set an appointment. So those are just numbers, and they're all up to you. The more you practice, the better your chances are going to be that it's going to happen to you. I want to go over what the 3 most powerful ways are to develop scripts. That's what it comes down to. If you don't have scripts, you don't want to use the ones you hear on the internet, I would suggest, all right, let's talk about trying it yourself. So number 1, what you do is you go into the situation and try thinking on your feet and see what happens. It's not a pretty sight, but it's a learning experience, and it's not something I would suggest because you can role play yourself and get ready for going into that. The goal here is to get experience without having to slit your own throat in front of a seller. Again, when you get into a situation where you can't answer that question, how do you deflect that lack of credibility? You bring it into your funding partner. You don't have to call me your funding partner, but your partner is the expert in that. You'll check with him and get back. And you check with me or him or whoever it happens to be, or you look online to find it, and you get back with them. That will keep your credibility in the conversation. So what I like to do when I develop the scripts and then I tried them is I role played in my mind. If I walk up to the door, knock on the door, and I say, "Hi, I'm in the neighborhood and I'm looking to buy a property. Can you help me?" I'm looking down the street and there's 15 for sale by owner signs. Doesn't matter. It's something that Nan and I did every time we got a rehab property. Before we started any rehab, we'd throw green up on the grass, and Nan would go out, go house to house, and ask for other properties. We always got at least one within a half to 1 block of where we were, so we always had 2 rehabs going on at the same time, close to one another. But the next thing I did is I thought of what kind of silly objections can these people have? And I would answer those objections. So I'd work myself mentally through that whole process. Why is that? I'm an engineer. Remember I said I'm a chemical engineer? I have this illogical, logical thought process, and you can do it yourself. It's not that hard. Just have to think of what are the negative things that somebody can say. Get off my yard, I'm sending my pit bull after you as you hear a shotgun go off. That's pretty severe. And my suggestion there is run like hell. Has it ever happened after thousands of presentations that I've made door knocking? No. It's silly. The biggest objection I've gotten is it's been taken care of. And I gave you an answer to that one already. So the third way to do it is to access scripts that work for other people. Whether it's a mentor or a coach, they will work for you. But I suggest very strongly that you practice them. They work because they've been said over and over again. Again, remember this. Your ability to close the sale, to get a presentation, is not a function of how great you are the first time you see the people. It's a function of your persistence in coming back and sticking to it. I don't know how many times students have said to me, I got a new record. Record what? 2 years ago, this person I made the presentation, they finally came back to me. How many times did you contact them? I contacted them every 3 months for the last 2 years. Gosh, what are you going to make on the deal? I think I'm going to make $95,000-$95,000. That's not bad. How did he get that, or she in some cases, oftentimes she, get those deals? Persistence, calling back. All they can do is say no. And I always joke with my students when we're doing a quick start. Until they get a restraining order from you, keep going back and asking if they're ready. So I want to talk about what's the worst objection ever from a seller. And I want you to think about this because you're going to get it. And you're not going to realize it until it happens. This is a very simple statement. Doesn't sound like an objection. And it has lost billions of dollars for unsavvy investors. It's very simply this. I have to talk to my husband about it. Hey, if they say that, you made a critical mistake of not making sure that both decision-making parties are going to be at that interview. And if you say, gosh, Dave, in my script, I don't want to use the word decision-making parties because it's going to sound like they're going to buy something. They are going to buy something. They're going to buy your contract to sell their house. Do not make a presentation to the husband or the wife because when the spouse comes home, they're going to ask questions that you didn't get the answer to it. Why didn't you ask him that? Well, I didn't know the answer. Why didn't you ask him? Well, I wasn't here. And when they do repeat what you said, it's going to be distorted. So your chances of getting a second presentation oftentimes are dwindling to getting to be zero. Always set the appointment with both decision makers at the table, so to speak. Now, what does that mean when he or she says to you, or they both say to you, we like you, we like the idea, but let us think about it? It means you haven't done your job. And what they're saying to you is, Dave, I don't know. I think I can get a better offer, but I'm not going to say that to you. You're a likable guy. And what I'm going to do is say, just go away, and then I won't answer your text. I won't answer your phone calls. And when you call back, if you've done enough to get me to answer the phone, I'll just say to you, we haven't made our mind up, or we went with someone else. Boo. Now, I will say this to you, that my attitude by far was, let me give you the contract, look at it overnight, see what you think, and if you have any questions, let me know. That was probably the worst non-salesman thing I could do, but it got me a lot of transactions, and oftentimes they never read it. One of the objections I would get is, I want to show the contract to my attorney or my realtor. I have a friend who's a realtor. I want to show them the contract. And my response was always, great, because they already know what the contract looks like. See down here at the bottom where it says FAR Bar? That means the Florida Association of Realtors and the Bar Association have already approved this contract. So it shouldn't take them 10 minutes to give you an okay. Now, what I found out when I actually went back and closed the sale, so to speak, got the signed contract, is they never showed it to the attorney. That was an excuse. That was an objection. They thought it would chase me away, but it didn't. So what I'm saying to you is you're better off to have an answer to that killer objection than simply to go away. And I'll give you a little clue here. I haven't done my job. If you still have questions or there's something to think about, oftentimes I get a question about the do not call list. I'm afraid to do cold calls because if they're on the do not call list, I'll spend the rest of my life in prison. These are excuses. The National Do Not Call Registry is www.donotcall.gov. Go there and see what services they offer. You can put a name, a number, I don't know what all. There's plenty of services that will run your list. You give them the list in an Excel format or other format that they can run through their computer programs. They will automatically pick out the people who are registered on the do not call list. So one time at one of the DREIA meetings, I got very interested in how many people have been fined through the do not call registry. And for the year prior to that, there was 2 companies that were fined. One was like $400 million. The other one was $600 million. No fines were paid. They just folded the corporations, opened new ones, and moved forward. There's a clue in what I've just told you. And I looked at the other fines and all things that they had. There was nothing there. What I did is I determined from the number of complaints they had that your chances of actually ever being fined were the same probability of winning 12 straight lotteries in a row. Not a big chance. But I'll tell you what has cropped up its head, and that's text messaging, because it's more of a nuisance for people because they don't have to answer the phone. Your silent voicemails and text messaging come through, and a number of my students got caught up in a bright shiny object sending text messages, and they still are, frankly, and they do work for them. Because remember, for a few pennies you can send out a text message rather than paying $20 per click on an advertising online. So they do it, and it's worked well for them. But here's the key. If you're going to do it, you have to go with a company that can run your list, and they will generate the list if you want them to. But run your list through a data service that talks about which ones are on the Do Not Call registry. That's easy. That is very easy. Any data service can do it. But what about the litigious people's list? What's a litigious person? Well, typically it's an attorney that has nothing better to do with his time, and he puts himself out on social media or on the internet, and he tries to get on investors' list, for example. What they do is, hey, he's signed in. He's opted in. He opted into your email. He didn't opt into you text messaging. So you run your list, including him, through this litigious people's list, and what happens? He doesn't show up. So what do? You run the list. What happens? You get an FTC complaint and a request for $10,000. That's the maximum for one person. But wait, there was 1,900 people on the list. What does he do? First thing he does is get the list, and then he contacts all 1,899 of them. Then he says, by the way, you've received a text message from this person. He's violated FTC regulations if you didn't agree to receive them. Here's how to opt in for our class action suit. What's the class action suit? Oh, it's for $18,990,000, $10,000 per occurrence. So what do? You take your list after they've filtered it and you run it through another list service for litigious people. And then you keep your fingers crossed because you can still get caught every once in a while. Now, I gave you the solution to that problem. keep that in mind. Remember I said the two giants, $400 million, $600 million fines? What did they do? Collapse the corporation. So if you're going to do these things, I'm not telling you how to get out of it, but I just did, you better make sure that that entity you're using is a throwaway. In closing, I want to say that your success will be determined by the choices you make and the persistence you put into your new career. If you get discouraged, you're going to stop way before you meet your success. And the old adage that persistence pays is nowhere truer than in real estate investing, cold calling, and following up. And as I always say, why not you?
Just do it! Dreams, just do it!
Okay, thanks a lot, Dave. We're still here for questions, and Dave, I want to know, have you joined those guys' class? I mean, are you directing them in all their chants? Jeez, they're hairy.
Well, it wasn't easy keeping all 5 of them running at the same time. He had 41 million views, if you didn't see that on the slide.
41 million.
41 million views, yeah. And I don't think it's been up that long. So, you got questions?
Well, listen, we're here for you with questions, and I want to encourage you to visit DREIA.com and join us on Facebook at DREIA Club. Sorry, the dog is barking at the door. Dave, what are your closing comments for people here?
Well, I said in the, one of the reasons I do this video, or I did this video specifically, is I lose my voice every once in a while. I didn't want to come on and start choking and coughing. I didn't know how long it was going to be, but I tried to cover everything I could. I want to say in closing, kind of, if we don't have any questions, that your life is a result of choices you've made. And you can't look back and say, well, I should have done this, I should have done that, so on. So it doesn't matter anymore. What you have to do is look forward and change your life, and you can do that. It's all up to you. So why not you? Any questions, or we're going to go?
No questions yet. I just, again, I want to thank every one of you for being here. You're very special to us. We look forward to seeing you again. Visit us at DREIA.com, and always email us at info@DREIA.com. Info@DREIA.com. Hang on, Dave. I see one question. I think that was a comment. So we'll see you all again soon. Happy investing.
Hold on, Jim. Are we still taking application for this mentoring class?
We are. It's kind of cutting it close, but if you'll go to DREIA.com and fill out the application for mentoring, Dave will have time to interview you. It's not just an application. Dave has to interview you to make sure we're a good fit. And Dave, hang on. I do have some questions here. Are we going to get the replay? Yes. Dave Lazaro asked, do we work with tax certificates?
Okay. This is very, very important. There's a lot of bright, shiny object courses that sell tax certificate purchases and tax deed purchases. We don't do that on our program. The return on a tax certificate is negligible, despite what you'll hear when people are selling courses and they say you can make 28% in Georgia or 50% in Texas. The reality is those auctions are called Dutch auctions, meaning you start at the highest possible bid price of 50%. In Florida, it's 18%. And the next bid has to be 17, 16, 15. And by far, almost every one of those goes for less than 1%. How's that happen? Well, banks are the big buyers, and they have to be big buyers because they have liens or mortgages rather against the property. And if it actually goes to a tax deed sale, it wipes out those mortgages, unlike a foreclosure sale where you have junior and superior liens or senior liens. It wipes out everything. So those are the real buyers. Now, why would they pay 0.5%, for example, on a certificate? Because in Florida, the default rate's 5%. So then they're going to earn 5% on their money for every day they held it and so on. But the real money is in pre-tax deed sales. That's where we make our money. Very oftentimes, a lot of them are free and clear, but the people haven't made their tax payments. I said this in the last one we had. I have a foreclosure pending on a commercial property in St. Pete that I funded. And I just happened to look, I think April 19th, to check and see if the guys had paid the taxes. And of course, since I'm taking the property away from them, they hadn't. And the third year was coming up, and coincidentally, the state had just extended the tax payments. So I went ahead and paid off one of the certificates that was going to be issued. They could have called for a sale. So my note and mortgage against the property would have been wiped out had I not done that. And it was frankly, I don't know, a blessing that I took the time to look and see. So if you're thinking about tax certificates, waste of money. Thinking about buying tax deeds, very, very important that you do the title work so you know what you're getting. And you're not going to get a deed, you're going to get a certificate of deed, which is not insurable through a title policy. You have to go and get a motion of the court and do a quiet title motion. Read more about them, and they're not guaranteed. One of the things that's most misleading, guys jumping up and down on YouTube or on TV are saying these are government guaranteed. They're not. And it tells you, if you look in Florida, is after 7 years they expire. Now, can you get something where you can earn 15% on the tax certificate? Yeah, except for one thing. It's a right of way or somebody who's never going to pay the taxes. Why would that be? Because, for example, I saw one where a parking lot in a condo association, and the thought process was for the guy that bought it, he got it for 17%. Okay, he had to pay for it, remember now. So he put up the money that was due on the taxes that had never been paid, and he said, I'm just going to put a gate up, and every time somebody comes in, they have to pay me. No, it's a public access. It's a right of way. You can't do that. So he just lost his money. As a matter of fact, he bragged about the fact that he saved up $25,000, went to his first auction, spent $25,000, and lost every penny. So be careful if you're going to do that. Got another one, Jim?
Well, somebody asked, they came in late and asked if we recommend Mojo, and I said, no, not necessarily. It's just that we were discussing what people use.
Yeah, Mojo is probably the most famous one because you hear it all the time. Name's easy to remember, but there may be better ones. I don't know. If you're going to do that, just Google Mojo Dialer on YouTube and you'll see all kinds of comparisons and everything else, no doubt.
You know, Dave, here's an interesting question from Mark. What are subject to options if the seller does not want to move?
Okay. So here's what happens. And I'm just dealing with one of those today, as a matter of fact. I don't want to tell you the entire background of the thing because I don't want to give away for the student what's going to happen. But I'm going to say to you that they're buying it around $45,000 and fair market value is over 200. And the seller is extremely happy with them doing that. But subject to is very powerful as a financing technique, but you have to be on title. When you go and do the closing, you become on title and you're able to control the sale of the property. When you do something like a lease option, you're leasing it and the original seller stays on title. So if you go to exercise the option, he says, no, you have a big fight on your hands. So subject to is very powerful. And I'll tell you where you can combine it into something that Dan and I used to do. We go into a presentation and say to them, look, you have a lot of equity. And they would say, yes, every investor's come around and offered us $5,000 or $10,000 or $15. And they probably had, well, in one case, they had over $100,000 in equity. So what Nan and I did is we said, here's what we'll do. We'll take over the payments. It's called subject to. We'll make you a partner in the transaction. Now, taking over the payments means we went on title. So we could then sell it. If we weren't on title and we fixed the house up, they'd never move. We'd have squatters. So that's what we did as a matter of fact. And what we did is we split the profit with them. You know, did the rehab on it, did everything we needed to do. And it came down to, okay, now you guys have to move out. And, you know, I said this, find an apartment and we'll put down the last month's payment. And we're looking at, I think we made $60,000 after splitting it with them 50-50. So it was a very good deal. So what happened? They couldn't find an apartment. And we want to sell the property. We can't sell it with them in there because of the stuff in the house. So Nan went over one day and said, let's go out and find a place. And we found a condo for them. And I never said to them, I think we can make this much money on the deal. But Nan will tell you that when we went to them in the condo and said, everything's closed. Now remember, They had nothing to do with the closing because we were on title. And they said to us, how much do we get? And was it 58,000 I got?
I thought it was 45 or something.
Nan thinks it was 45. I think it was 58. Call it 50, just to ballpark it. The woman dropped to her knees and started crying, kissed my hand. How embarrassing could that be? But it was very sincere on her part because they had nothing. A hurricane had wiped out their business in the Bahamas, and they couldn't even get back to England. So it was a great experience for everybody involved, us and them and so on. Another question, Jim.
You know, Dave, we get that question a lot. I'm glad this is going to be recorded. It's a very important one. I think that kind of wraps it up. And again, you can send any other questions you have to info@DREIA.com. And Dave, Viju, Nancy, or I will certainly, you can hear Nancy in the background there. We're the 4 on the mentor team. And again, as Viju said, it's not too late to apply for either June or we'll get a head start on July. All right, so say good night, everyone.
Good night, guys. Thanks for coming. I miss you all. Hope to see you when we get back into the meeting.
Thank you all.